Hello, hello, and welcome to Motivation and Money with me, Mark Terrell, and my co-host Fanny Snaith. How are you today, Fanny?
I'm excellent, thank you, Mark. It's lovely to
Good,
be back.
good stuff.
We
And
missed a week last week, didn't we?
well, you had a big week because your stardom. You
Oh,
were actually went on to Sky News and talked about money after the announcement for the interest rate going up. And how was that for you?
it was great fun. I loved it. It was really good fun, and it was
Yeah,
live as well, which was like it was so
yeah.
exciting. And one of my 60 things before 60 that I've got my list of my bucket list sort of thing to do is to be on telly as me. So I ticked it off.
Well done, you. That's amazing. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was great. I watched it, and yeah, you did yourself proud, and I'm surprised that you're still allowing yourself to come and do the show with me, to be honest. But there we are. Today,
So we've got
uh,
we've got a few minutes.
yes, indeed. So I put a sort of little bit of a teaser on this show because we don't
Yeah.
normally have a sort of we just talk about motivation and money. But on this one, I decided because of a few things that sort of I've read recently. I put how important are you? So in other words, how important do you think you are to yourself? Are you putting yourself? Um, are you making the right decisions for yourself? And the reason why I thought about this was a couple of things. I'm going to talk about a couple of books I'm reading at the moment. I've shared already with Fanny. Um, but I realised that actually, going back to previous conversations, that our attitude to putting money aside for the future is very much dependent on how we see our longevity and what we see in the future, and that the importance of having a vision as to where we're going to be. And if there's no vision there, how when we're trying to when we put money aside for something, then it doesn't really mean as much as if you're actually moving towards something that you want to be in the future. So I just thought I'd sort of put it out there and see what happens. You've got some things to say about it, haven't you, Fanny?
Yeah, well, actually, I was going to say something. I think that our attitude towards long-term investing and saving can be quite age related for a start.
Hmm.
But that is changing. So historically, I think if you talk to many financial advisors who are talking to 20-year-olds, 22-year-olds about their pension, it's like, why bother with that? It's too
Mm.
far in the future to even think about. And I don't think that necessarily has anything to do with their self-identity. I think it's to do with the fact that it just seems so far away. And as you get older, I think things definitely change. However, with the new Gen Z people, um, they really are more into saving. So maybe that's a really good question to ask: is how are they looking at their longevity? How are they looking at it? I mean, it is a really interesting thing because has it got to do just with age or
Well,
how much
it's just how we perceive ourselves. That's really I was thinking of. It always really depends on what we think of ourselves and the possibilities that we see for ourselves. And if we see little possibility, then are we actually ever going to be able to put money aside for that future that we can't really envisage?
I mean financially that's really poignant in the fact that I know that I listen to LBC radio quite often. It's a bit of a gossip box, but um, they've been talking to people about how standards of living, the cost of living, etc., how it's affecting them. And there are people that come onto the radio who are hopeless. And I mean, they have hopelessness. They're feeling hopeless.
Yeah.
They're not hopeless in themselves. They're feeling hopeless in the fact that, it just the sums don't add up right now. And I think that it's, and they're very much trapped in that thought,
Mm.
and they can't see a way out. They had a guy actually on yesterday where he was walking the streets looking for money, and he was an electrician actually. And he was going, I'm going to get a second job, I'm going to have to get a second job and all this kind of stuff. But, I just walk the streets looking for money. And it's a really interesting bandwidth to keep yourself in, isn't it? Of
Mm.
just thinking like those are your options. And it's really that's thinking about tomorrow, really, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
not thinking in the future.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, I think about my children's future a lot.
Mhm.
And I think about the legacy that I can leave them. In fact, that's probably more important than me thinking about myself, which I'm not going to say whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that is probably comes to my mind before anything else.
Well, it's a purpose, isn't it? So as long as you've got a purpose, you think, well, I'm doing it for that reason, and it gives you a reason to put it
Mm.
aside. But coming back to the situation at the moment where we're under the squeeze with inflation and everything, that Daniel Priestley put a good tweet out the other day. I think it was yesterday, where he said there is obviously there's two ways to deal with the situation at the moment.
Yeah,
You either go into the mentality of saving money to make up for the difference, or you go into overdrive with regards to earning more to cover it and finding ways to earn money. So there's a completely different mindset there, and whichever mindset you adopt will be you then to start taking action. You take an action around that mindset.
yeah,
So, like we had a conversation now at my household last night was about, you know, um, switching off lights and all that sort of stuff. And we're not. I mean, I'm not saying we're in any sort of dire straits, but it does. Everything going up does put you in that sort of, we need to sort of not do things. But actually,
yeah,
what we need to do is actually be in a position to earn more.
yeah.
That seems more of a positive way of acting, isn't it?
It is, and I commented on that post
Mm.
because that's one of the things that I said on Sky News Clang last week, was that for the middle income earners right now, they're they've looked at their bank statements and everything's okay. They go, let's just say, for instance, let's take Fred Bloggs, who is employed. He's been employed for X number of years. In fact, he's always been employed. He's never been self-employed. He doesn't think of himself as being entrepreneurial. He thinks of himself as always going to the job. And he's earning all right. He's got a mortgage, he's got his car, and he opens his bank statements and they're all right. And he looks at the credit card statement and it's all right. It's not too, it's not too big, but it's not small. He's coping with the payments. It's sort of all right. For him, he is now feeling unusually squished, unless he's going to get a whacking great pay rise. And it was one of the things I said, is that when I'm sitting down and doing budgets with people, the figures just don't stack up, and serious lifestyle choices need to be made. And the thought of turning off a few lights and only using the washing machine a couple of times a week and fill a bowl full of water to do the washing up. I mean, we're talking about these things which we haven't had to do for years now. Those things aren't going to cut it. So you might be actually talking about cancelling the family holiday. I mean, that's a reality.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because,
Definitely.
that's the thing. But people are now being forced, I think, to look into the future. But I questioned Dan's thing. I said, some people just don't have that kind of entrepreneurial mind. It's a whole new thing for them. I mean, I know quite a few teachers who work long hours for not great money, and the thought of them taking on a side hustle or doing something else is something that doesn't seem in their realm.
Completely alien. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Although I have to say, years ago, my sister, who's also a teacher, and she said, her pay wasn't very good and all that kind of stuff. She was working further education. I said, well, why don't you get a couple of private students? And she's going, I don't have time for private students. It's really, really hard to have private students. Anyway, one fell in her lap, which earned her 1 hour for a week, £35 a week or something. And then another one came along, and all of a sudden it's like, actually, okay, maybe I can do this, because you find the energy for it, right, when you get an extra £70 a week in your bank account.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think, I mean, the obstacles that come into people's thinking with regard to that is, especially if they've always been employed, so they get a job and they get paid for it, suddenly having to promote themselves, market themselves, and then sell a service. That's
a nightmare.
Yeah, that's what puts people off, thinking that they've got to sell themselves, and then and we all know how difficult that is to overcome. It's what most business owners spend most of their time doing, is trying to.
Well, it's very interesting you say that, actually, because I mean, that's one of the things that I say, but that happened to me when I left my job and became a money coach. The worst thing in the world happened, because I had to sell myself, and I wasn't hadn't got a lot of experience. I knew what I could do, but I didn't know how well it was. I knew I could do for me, and I had helped other people, but it was all very new, which then brings us back full circle to how important are you, because it's about recognizing your value and what you can give to other people, which then allows you to make connections and serve. I'm not going to say sell.
Serve, exactly. That's the right mindset to think you're serving
Make
someone that
connections and serve. But
needs you
it
to
doesn't
help them. Yeah.
it doesn't happen overnight, does it?
No,
It
it
really
doesn't.
doesn't happen overnight.
No, it's very much internal. It's something that you've got to overcome and find that right thing that just clicks. All of a sudden, you suddenly realise, actually, I'm not selling. I'm solving a problem that somebody wants my help with. So yeah, absolutely.
So
So
going back to the theme then. Hang on, I
yes,
wrote it down on my iPad. You told me about a book that you're reading at the moment.
yeah. So I'm reading a couple of books. One
Yeah.
I've just finished, which was called. It was written by a lady called Amy Cuddy.
Amy
She's
Cuddy.
famous for a TED talk she talked about with regards to power poses. And the book I was reading.
Do you mean power poses?
Power poses, that, yeah. Because
Like that.
basically what she tells you is that it's how you feel that then allows you to be who you want or need to be. It's about behavior reinforces our behavior. So when we feel strong and we just stand there in a pose for a couple of minutes before we go on stage, it puts us in that right state, so that we can perform at our best. And what she says in her book is how we feel about ourselves really matters. So we've got to make every effort we can to make sure that we feel good about ourselves. So if we don't feel good about ourselves, are we going to make good decisions with regards to investing? So it's important to have a good self perception, so we know that, or we like ourselves, I suppose you could say, and then we start to really become the person that we want to be, because we are making ourselves and doing things that make us feel good about ourselves. So obviously posing is only one thing. It's not just you can't just stand posing. You've got to think about yourself in a way that actually you become the person you want to be.
Do you remember the episode that we did when we talked about the emotional guidance chart?
I can't. Yeah, it was a few weeks ago, but yes, you did
So
share
this
that.
is
It's really good.
all of this then comes back to, if we're going to speak in woo-woo speak, this all comes back to the law of attraction. Because have you heard of the self-coaching model? The circumstance creates a thought, which creates a feeling, which creates a reaction, which creates an action, which gives a result.
Exactly, yeah. That's exactly what I've been saying, actually, yeah.
Exactly. So if you twist that a little bit and say you've got a circumstance which gives you a feeling, which will give you a vibration, right, which will cause a frequency, right? So it'll give you a vibration which gives out a frequency.
Yeah.
We all know it comes down to that same thing. There's a film with Judy Garland called The Easter Parade, and they play some kind of game about trying to make people look at them walking down the street. And I've played this game plenty, not quite the same way as they played it, but I've played this game plenty of times, and everybody can test it. Is that if you walk down the street, head down, sort of like this, looking miserable, you can bet your bottom dollar that you'll probably be pretty invisible. Whereas if you walk down the street, standing upright, with not a stupid grin on your face, but just smiling with your eyes, smiling with a normal face, people will say hello, they'll look at you, and they will do that, because it's all about what you're giving out.
Yep.
This is all the same stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I speak to people who are really, for some people who are just like, they're really having a good old swim about in their own pity party, right? Which is, and you hear the tale of woe, and it's difficult. And I all I know is that I can't work with them while they're there. I can't work with them as a money coach
Yeah.
while they're swimming around in their pity party. So I have to have some tools in how to lift them up. And the way that I do it is that I will say to them, what makes you happy? And they might go, nothing. Come on, just give me one thing that makes you happy. And they might say, my daughter's dog has just had puppies and I love looking at them and they're amazing, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, right, so just think about that thought, think about that, think about how you're feeling. And all of a sudden, they're starting to lift up. So it's about changing our personal state. We have to change our own personal state.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm going back to the emotional guidance chart, because while you're right down in the bottom of hopelessness, powerlessness, depression. I mean, I'm not going to talk about clinical depression because obviously that's, that can be a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
But really feeling low. I mean, that's what we say, don't we? I'm feeling really low today.
Mm.
You can't just say to somebody, well, just feel happy. Because it's not going to work. You've got to go through a number of emotions and vibrations in order to get there. And you're not going to feel important while you're down here.
No.
Ever.
Exactly.
Are you?
But I mean that the body language thing is so important, isn't it? It's where how you feel about yourself will then people will feel it and see it because you are, you look vibrant and happy and all those sort of things. But when you close off, people are not scared, but just aren't attracted to you. So and when it comes to law of attraction, you basically everything's bouncing away from you because there's nothing that's being drawn towards you, or what is actually being drawn towards you is probably more of the things that you don't want because you're attracting them in the wrong way.
That's right. So, I mean, if you go into a party and you're feeling like, a party, and you see a group of people in grey suits in the corner like this, and then you see another group of people on the other side all laughing and joking, which one are you going to be more drawn to?
Yeah.
It's not rocket science, is it?
Exactly.
So where are we going to go with this then? So how important are you? So we were talking about investing for the long term.
Yeah.
I mean, see, you ask a really interesting question because when we're talking about investing for the long term, bearing in mind that investments have gone down quite considerably over the last few weeks.
But why is that then?
Why is that then?
Yeah.
Well,
So why have they gone down? Why does the stock market fluctuate so much?
Because people buy and sell stuff.
And why do they buy and sell stuff?
Well, it's all because it's all based on opinion and how they're feeling.
Exactly. That's what I wanted you to say. So exactly. The stock market is based on how people are feeling about the way that they perceive things. Because nobody knows what the future holds. It's just how they perceive things, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, from my personal point of view right now, I'm putting money in, whereas I know that there are going to be plenty of people out there who are going to be going, oh my God, it's going down. I'm losing my money. I need to pull my money out. Which means they're going to make a loss. So it's about having those wise decisions, isn't it? I suppose and having the vision that you're taking it on the long term.
Yeah. But I mean, it comes back to the fact that it's about how you feel about the future and how you feel about yourself. And, am I nervous about the short term, the long term? Do I need to take money out, put it in? It's about being able to engage that prefrontal cortex. So take away the emotion and actually think about what's actually happening here is a reaction to the, world events and all the other things that affect people's decision making actually. But does it actually change anything about what I want to achieve in the long term? So it does always. That's why it's so important to be able to control your emotions, isn't it? When it comes to, especially investing and all those things. Like I always say to my clients, that you need to be in a place where you're neither euphoric or down in the dumps. You need to be in a place where you're somewhere in the middle, so you can make decisions that are neither overly optimistic or the opposite.
Balanced, you mean?
Balance. Yes, indeed.
So, and if we go back to the money types, we're talking about the magician, faith, trust, and balance. To be in faith, trust, and balance,
So
which is
that's yes.
nice.
So the magician's a good archetype.
The
Yeah,
magician's the best
the best. Yeah,
archetype.
yeah,
Yeah. So for some people, then it's going to come down to knowledge,
mm,
just not knowing.
yeah.
But for others, it's going to be, oh, I can't do this, or I don't this, I don't think that, or I don't think, or let's face it, for a lot of people as well, especially people who are employed, I get up, I go to work, I get my wages at the end of every month, there's money going into my pension, everything's sorted. But is it?
Well, yeah, exactly. Because the interesting thing is that we come back to the big oil companies that are making massive profits at the moment on the back of the energy, is that a lot of them, the big pension funds hold massive amounts of shares in those companies. So they actually get the money and goes into people's pensions. And so it's not, just by, windfall taxes and all that sort of stuff. Actually, what we've got to all remember is that the people that have invested those companies will actually benefit because they'll get a pension. And if we do short-term things by, stripping them of profit that they've made, ultimately that affects the money that goes into pension. So it's all those things. It's all a complicated mix, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's probably a bit too complicated for today, really,
Yeah.
because that really does it. So, but the thing is, then going back to how important are you?
Hmm.
How important are you? How important are you?
Yeah.
Everybody's important because there's no two people that are the same.
Hmm.
So when we say, so could we say then that everybody is important? It's just about recognizing your importance.
Exactly. So as our brief conversation before we went live, we talked about a big moment for you is when you realised that actually getting recognition was actually, good for you. And one of the motivations that we're talking a lot about within the sessions that I'm running with my clients is about having what we call the star motivator, whether it's
Oh yeah,
low or whether it's high. And often it's quite low. And this conversation I have around it is that are you missing out opportunities because you are not being noticed, because you're not promoting yourself, you're not getting recognized, you're not in that sort of hierarchy, you're not sort of really noticed, and you're not getting the opportunities that maybe you get if you were being noticed. So there's always that there's no good or bad motivator, but your lowest motivator sometimes indicates the things, well, it does actually indicate the things that you pay the least attention to. And so if the thing you pay least attention to, what we want to make sure that doesn't become an Achilles heel and prevent you from progressing and getting what you really want. So in regards to promoting or getting recognition, that's almost about marketing yourself, getting noticed, and people appreciating you, which for some feels uncomfortable. But it's a good thing to be appreciated. But when we get to too much of it, or we're almost addicted to it, is that a sort of an ego-driven thing? And
yeah.
that's what we sort of feel as adults, but we don't seem to think about that when we're kids, do we?
No, we don't think about it when we're kids. You said something interesting as well. You said when we don't put ourselves out there to get in order to get what we want.
Hmm.
Something that I find is that people won't say what they want
Yeah.
because they're already coming from a place whereby they don't think enough of themselves to even believe that what they want could be possible. So they say it. This comes back to the self-identity thing again. So they say they don't know, i.e., in resignation, resigned to the fact that I'm here, this is me, this is what I do, nothing's going to change, da, 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 da. Because that's the identity, well, or the feeling of how much importance that they have. That's the only thing they can relate to.
Hmm.
So, does it say in your two books somewhere, or your book, whether your books? I know you've only just started one.
Yeah.
Does it talk about having to feel the feeling of where you're going so that you can talk about it and you can express it, so that you can actually come out of the context that you're already in and actually create your goals and dreams and decide what you and say what you want
Mm.
openly and confidently from the place of where you are going. Because it's like, if I was to say, I don't know, I don't, obviously there's got to be some realism in it. There's no point me saying I'm going to be the next woman on the moon, because I'm taking absolutely no steps to do it. But let's say I wanted to have be a money coach with an X amount of turnover, and it's a big figure, right? A really big figure for me. It's difficult to say that's what I want, because it seems like such a long way away. So for me, it would be easier for me to then put myself in the space of what it would feel like to be a money coach with that kind of turnover, and then look back and saw how I got there.
Yeah. Well,
But
the second book
thinking,
I was going to mention
yeah,
is this book, which I can show you because it's here. It's called The Earned
mhm.
Life by Marshall Goldsmith. It's only been out a few weeks.
Show it
Um,
again so that people can actually,
there we go. Can you see that? The Earned
yeah,
Life, Marshall
yeah,
Goldsmith.
yeah. I love
Um,
his.
so I've only just started reading it, so there's lots for me to learn from it. So, but what's picked up already within the first chapter or so was that he, what the concept he talks about with an earned life is, we all talk about setting goals, which is good. So we need to have a future that we're moving towards, and that goes back to investing. We've got to have someone that, what's the point? Why are we doing this? It's to create a future. But what he talks about is actually that we are a new person, a new self every second, every minute, every hour, every month, every year, whatever. We should see ourselves as a new person. So we're different to the people that started this chatting half an hour ago, because we've just learned something. We've become something other than what we were 30 minutes ago, because we've just probably discovered something maybe that's different and we might take action around. So it's about knowing that you are not the person that you did things in the past. You are just a new person.
A
So
different
it's a new
person.
person. And what
Mhm.
an interesting thing that he suggested you should do is to firstly write a letter. The first letter is thank the past self for actions that you took. So
Right.
things that you are now grateful for. So you did something back in whenever it was,
Yeah.
to thank that your previous self
Yeah.
for taking that action, doing that thing, whatever it was.
Hmm.
And the other thing, not surprisingly, is to write a letter to your future self. It's a little bit sort of goal setting idea, but rather than setting a goal, it's actually writing a letter to your future self to say, "I did this today to allow you to have that," whether that's 3, 5, 10 years time. So when you're thinking about, a house, buying a house or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
write to yourself to say, today I commit to do this to allow my future self in 10 years time to be
Yeah.
in a position to do X.
And that goal, I guess you then chunk down to make it achievable.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I mean,
yeah.
I think when you write a letter, you tend to write things in paragraphs anyway, so there'll be steps, won't you? So I
Mm.
think it's not something I've done yet, but I think it's quite a profound thing to do with regards to thanking your past and thanking or writing a letter to your future self. But just the idea of that you are a different person as time goes by, and referring to your past selves as opposed to something you did, that person that you were, you're no longer that person, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah.
So it allows you to things that you're maybe not so proud of, you can um, not you can release, and things
Yeah.
that if you've done that actually allow things to do, you are thanking yourself for those things.
Yeah. And I mean, I suppose you could also say that some of the things that you did that you weren't so proud of, they're going to have some benefit somewhere along the line when you work it
Yeah,
through.
yeah.
You're going to have something that you can get some good that can come out of it.
We are
But
all a combination of what's happened to us to this point.
yeah,
And obviously, when it comes to motivations, there's three realms we think about: the things that have happened to us, the things that are happening to us, and the things that we want to happen. And your motivations will be driven depending on whether you're future focused, present focused, or past focused. And some of the work I do is about shifting people from being too focused on the past and making them more focused on what they want to achieve and what they want to create in the future. And that's about being focused on other motivations that maybe then
yeah,
they brings them possibilities. That's the thing.
yeah. So we've been very philosophical today,
We
aren't
have,
we?
haven't we? Getting deeper and deeper in these conversations.
So if we were to summarize it then,
Yes.
I think I would say, this is just my view, I would say be present in the moment that you're in, because I think that we can spend way too much time in the past and way too much time in the future.
Yeah.
So be present to notice what you are,
Mm-hmm.
because how important am I? That's a now thing, right? And then keep note of the fact that you are ever changing, and of each choice and decision that you make can determine where you want to end up. Is that about right?
Yeah. I think that sums it up really nicely. Yeah. And obviously, we are all important. So make sure you are important. So if you've
But be careful of your
if you got
choices.
sorry,
But be careful of your choices.
be careful of your choices. Indeed, we're all at the mercy of our choices. So if you have any comments to make about what we talked about today, then we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to be able to reply to any comments. So feel free to leave them wherever you're catching this on whichever social media platform, whatever. Then please get in touch if you've got any questions. And hope you've enjoyed the content. And we will be back very soon with another episode, hopefully. Take care
Lovely
for
to
now.
see you. Yeah,
See you
take
next
care.
time.
Bye bye.
Bye.